For any of you that want a list of a bunch of punk movies, I think this is going to be a pretty good one. I decided to go ahead and leave out documentaries just because there are so many of them, and because they're not really something you sit down and watch just for entertainment value. And fair warning, some of these are good, some of these are bad. I can kind of give my opinions on some of them, but ultimately that's just up to the viewer. Alright, so first off we've got SLC Punk from 1998. Many of you will probably recognize one of the leads in this movie, Matthew Lillard. Also, for those who don't know, SLC is Salt Lake City, Utah. That's actually really close to where I live. That's typically where I have to go for concerts because we don't really get any in my area. So it's a scene that I've regularly visited for years. A ton of stuff in the movie is super relatable to me in my area. I don't know, part of that just makes it hit really close to home for me. The movie follows two punks living in Salt Lake City in the 80s and their shenanigans that ensue. Obviously, I tend to favor this one. I will say I think there's a reason that this one is one of the more well-known ones, aside from even just having Matthew Lillard in it. And then there's a sequel to SLC Punk, which is Punk's Dead, SLC Punk 2. You see a lot of reoccurring characters from the first movie. It's got some good humor in it and everything like the first one does. Overall, I like the second one, although as most sequels do, it doesn't have all good opinions. Personally, the only flaw I think it has is the fact that they decided to go with Machine Gun Kelly as one of the cast members. Next, we've got Green Room from 2015. This movie follows a punk band that goes out to play a show. The venue ends up being full of white power skinheads, and of course, violence ensues. Alright, this next one is Suburbia from 1983. This one follows a gang of young punks, some of them being younger children who just decided to leave home. I will say this one does have kind of a sadder ending, but I think it's really excellent, probably one of the best ones on the list. Return of the Living Dead from 1983. We've got punks in a cemetery at night as zombies arise. It's one of my absolute favorites. Amazing soundtrack. It's got 45 Grave. You guys know that's one of my favorites. In fact, most people know the recording from this movie more than the album version. It's a lot of fun. If you like horror, I highly recommend it. I feel like the Runaways from 2010 should count. So for anyone who doesn't know anything about the Runaways, they're a really important band as far as rock history is concerned. They were one of the first all-girl rock bands in the 70s. Now I will say that this movie does take some creative liberties. It's not fully accurate to the Runaways' actual story, so don't mistake it for a documentary. It does give you a pretty decent idea of what the band was like and a little bit of their history, and it's a great coming-of-age style movie. And if you watch it and you want to learn more about the Runaways afterwards, I highly recommend Cherie Curry's book, Neon Angel, Lita Ford's book, Livin' Like a Runaway, and Joan Jett doesn't, I don't think, have a book, but she does have the documentary Bad Reputation that's pretty good. There's Class of 1984 that came out in 1982. Now this movie's got a lot of pretty fun moments in it. Unfortunately, the punks are pretty villainous characters. It does, however, have Roddy McDowall, so if you're like me and you're a very big Roddy McDowall fan, then you might enjoy him being in it. Here we've got Verlierer, I think that's how you say it, from 1987. This one's a German film, so if you don't speak German, get ready for some subtitles. This one can also be pretty hard to find, but it's really good. It's about two rival gangs of punks and metalheads. Here's This Is England from 2006. For me personally, this one was a bit of a tough watch. A lot of it has to do with some racist skinheads and a kid that gets involved with them. I think this movie can have a lot to offer, but it requires a lot of nuance and understanding to be able to see some of those aspects, and some of that I don't think I quite have. So for any of you who have seen it, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Here's Times Square from 1980. This one's one of my favorites. It's about two runaway girls in New York who start a local punk phenomenon. It's got a lot of great energy and a pretty fun ending, which is a breath of fresh air to me because honestly, a lot of punk movies kinda tend to have down-no endings. Here's Sing Street from 2016. This one's about some schoolboys who decide to start a band because one of them really wants to impress this girl. Personally, I thought that premise sounded a little bit lame. It wasn't quite up my alley, but after watching it, I really enjoyed it. It is a little bit more on the new wave side, but I think it still fits in with this list. Ladies and gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains from 1982. If I remember right, the writing for the main characters in this movie is very influenced from the band The Slits, but even if they aren't, they definitely have a lot of that energy. For the most part, it follows a girl after her mother's death trying to make it in a punk band. This one is really entertaining. I highly recommend it. Breaking Glass from 1980. This one is about a punk singer and her rise to fame. I saw an article saying that the writing for this character was very influenced by David Bowie, and I could definitely see that. There's a lot of really great artistic elements in this one. Again, a little bit more on the new wave side, but so good. I would also say that it prophesized the pipeline from post-punk to new wave really well. Here's Disgusteen from 1990. The harrowing tale of a girl led astray by a vicious gang of punks. And there's also vampires involved? I don't know, this one's a very independent film. You can find it on YouTube. It's a pretty fun watch if you're into those kinds of things. Bomb City from 2017. So this one is based on a true story. It follows a group of punks, mainly Brian Deneke, living in a conservative town in Texas. I thought that this one was really good and I highly recommend watching it. Repo Man from 1984. This one is about a punk turned repo man, aka car repossessor. It also involves aliens, time travel, and other strange happenings. Overall, this one's a pretty fun one. I highly recommend it. We Are the Best from 2013. This is another one you'll need subtitles for unless you can understand Swedish. It follows 3 young girls who want to start a punk band. It's got a lot of cute moments. I'd recommend it. I do think it dragged on a little bit, but overall, a pretty good movie. Tank Girl from 1995. I liked this one a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's based on comics, which I haven't read, so maybe there are some differing opinions there. I haven't heard anyone else's opinion on the movie. But it's got an awesome soundtrack, lots of ass kicking, overall just like a ton of fun. My camera quit on me for this one, so we're gonna have to deal with just audio. Here's The Ranger from 2018. It's a horror movie about a group of punks that go hide out in the woods after a show. Rock and Roll High School from 1979. I would say this one is mainly a Ramones fan film, so if you really like the Ramones, this is definitely the movie for you. If not, it's still a pretty fun movie, but it's not necessarily my favorite. Smithereens from 1982. This movie follows a narcissist running around the New York punk scene. It wasn't one of my favorites, but it was a pretty good watch. Dudes from 1987. This movie is basically some punks thrown into a western. I really enjoyed the soundtrack, the casting was pretty good, and Daredelvis was a lot of fun. Jubilee from 1978. For me, this one was a little too artsy. You do see some familiar faces, so that's pretty fun. Adam Ant is in it, Susie shows up in a scene, and there's some people related to the going-ons with Vivienne Westwood. Dogs in Space from 1986. This one is set in Melbourne, Australia in 1978. It follows some gutter punks all living together. Out of the Blue from 1980. This one's about a 15-year-old girl who has trouble with both of her parents, but finds solace in music like punk and Elvis. And Wild Zero from 1999. I haven't seen this one yet, but I'm pretty excited to watch it. I'll go ahead and read you the premise. Only legendary Japanese garage rock band Guitar Wolf can stand between a race of aliens from destroying Earth with an army of zombies. To me, this one sounds like a lot of fun. It's definitely on my watch list. I'm pretty excited about it. Let me know if I missed any good ones and what your guys' favorites are.